Well, hot damn. Ah, BFOD squad. Welcome back to Barrel Full of Daryl, Season 2, Episode 4. This is where I like to talk about music, movies, provide some mirth, as well as some other funky ass shit. By the way, I appreciate all of my listeners. But here's a shout out to listeners in Frankfurt, Germany, Helsinki, Finland, and Ashburn, Virginia. Thanks for being here. Okay, so last week I gave you a mystery movie line. Go ahead, make my day. Well, way back in the 1970s, there was a series of hit films starring Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry, kind of unusual police officer in San Francisco. And one day he had a perp pinned down, holding his huge revolver to his face. And he says, "So, punk, I guess I know what you're thinking. In all this activity, I may have lost count myself. How many bullets do I have left in my gun? Maybe one, maybe none. But are you willing to take that chance? Are you? Go ahead, make my day." And that became a quote that was used quite a lot in a lot of different media and amongst friends and stuff. Okay, I got a music lyric for you, a mystery music lyric. Can we have kippers for breakfast? Mummy dear, mummy dear. Ooh. Yeah. By the way, I I edited the footer for my episodes, and the playlist links are now included in each episode. Season 1, Season 2. My apologies if you struggled with this. Okay, let's talk about some music. Last week I was talking to my beautiful and talented daughter, Megan, and we ended up discussing books and some music. And she told me that she had been listening to George Jones.
That blows my mind.
Me too, Kenzie. Me too. Mind blown. I was just surprised that my daughter would pick up on a country and western singer, songwriter from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But it's great. Truly is. But when I said something to her about his death, she said, "What? He's dead?" Yeah, I laughed. I love my Megan. He died in 2013. But both of my kids have had ample exposure to books and various genres of music, and one day I expect that there will be a podcast titled "Barrel Full of Megan" or something similar, and she can have Kenzie as her producer. So George Jones, also known as the greatest country singer, also known as the Rolls-Royce of country music. And he got another nickname, No Show Jones, due to his heavy use of alcohol and drugs. But man, this guy can sing. Got a very distinctive, very emotional voice. He was born in Saratoga, Texas in 1931. He died in Nashville, Tennessee in 2013. Now, his father worked in a shipyard and played the harmonica and guitar, but he was also an alcoholic and abusive to his family. His mother played piano in the local Pentecostal church. So at the age of 7, his parents bought him a radio, and they would sit together and listen to the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, George was a big fan, even at the age of 7, country music. He was 9 when his dad bought him his first guitar, and he learned his first chords and songs in church. Now, at the age of 16, he started singing and playing on various radio stations. This is when he met his idol, Hank Williams, at one of these sessions. Now, George eventually became associated with the producer and eventually mentor H.W. Pappy Daly. Sounds like he could be from Scratch Ankle. Pappy, he admonished George for trying to sound like his heroes, Lefty Frizzell and Hank Williams. And he wanted George to find his own voice, which he did. Now, in 1955, George was touring as a cast member of the show Louisiana Hayride when he met and played shows with Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. Now, Johnny Cash invited him to play at the Grand Ole Opry in 1956, and they remain lifelong friends. 1959, George released his first #1 hit called White Lightning. That's a fun song. Now, he also had early success as a songwriter, and he wrote many of his biggest hits during this time. His songs were also covered by the likes of Mickey Gilley, Willie Nelson, and Jerry Lee Lewis. I don't expect you to know those names, but maybe you do. So George was starting to hit the big time. But his alcoholism started to kick in during the late 1960s and the 1970s. He was also abusing amphetamines, and in 1967 he had to be admitted into a neurological hospital for treatment. It's a funny story, yet it's true. At one time, his wife hid all the car keys so that George could not drive 8 miles down the road to the liquor store in Beaumont, Texas. So George found the keys to his riding lawnmower, and he drove it for 1.5 hours to get to the liquor store. Yeah. In 1970, while touring in Florida, George went on a bender and ended up in a straitjacket and committed to a padded cell in a clinic. Kept him there for 10 days, and they released him with a prescription for Librium. And by the late 1970s, he had basically spiraled out of control. He was introduced to cocaine before a show when he was too tired to perform. And this really, he was a paranoid guy, and this really enhanced his paranoia. And during one binge at a party, he shot at and barely missed one of his songwriting partners. And at this point, George was penniless, and he claimed to be $1 million in debt. By 1979, he was living in his car and subsided on junk food, which he could barely keep down. He also weighed less than 100 pounds. This is the time frame when he got the nickname No Show Jones. By 1980, he had not had a #1 single in 6 years, and many critics were thinking his career was over. But then he released one of his biggest hits and one of my favorites by him. It's called He Stopped Loving Her Today. It was #1 for 18 weeks. His poignant delivery has made it one of the greatest country songs of all time. George was back. Now, later on in 1999, he was involved in an auto accident, and he spent 2 weeks at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He was later charged with drunk driving. And this was a turning point for him, and he quit drinking and smoking. He said in an interview, "I didn't have to have no help. I made up my mind to quit. I don't crave it." Well, sadly, George died of upper respiratory infections in 2013 at the age of 81. Wow. He managed to hang in there for a long time, given his addictions and financial woes. He's interred at Woodlawn Cemetery in Nashville, and his death made headlines all over the world. Now, George has released a shit ton of albums. You know, I started counting up the albums in his discography, and I gave up. It's just hundreds. He released solo albums, and he also released albums with collaborators. He also received several Grammys, including the Lifetime Achievement Award. So please give his songs a listen. They're out there hanging on the playlist. Rest in peace, George. And now a word from our sponsor. I'll be right back. Hi, this is Robbie Ray Simpleton again. You know, the teenage entrepreneur here in Scratch Ankle? I wanted to give you an update on the creation of my squabbit, you know, a cross between a squirrel and a rabbit. Well, I have them both in a cage for about a week now, and they've just been sitting in opposite corners staring at each other. And this morning, my daddy came in to see what I was up to, and I explained it to him that I was trying to make a squabbit. He didn't seem too happy, but then he kind of got interested. He lifted up the cage and said, Then he pulled the rabbit out and gave it a squeeze. Then he said, okay. And he put the rabbit back and picked up the squirrel. Then he said, Robbie, he said, both of these animals are males. I asked him if it mattered, and he said, oh yeah, it makes a big difference. I'll explain that to you later. Then he showed me how to check. Golly gee whiz, I had no idea. Anywho, now I need to get a female squirrel, because they are easy to catch. So I'll keep you posted, and bye for now. And we're back. Movie time. Movie. You remember way back ago, I discussed the movie No Country for Old Men. All the way back in season 1, episode 2. I was a young man then. Now, that movie is based on the awesome novel of the same name written by Cormac McCarthy, one of my 2 favorite authors. Such a great writer. Rest in peace, sir. Now, he also wrote a book that he won a Pulitzer Prize for. It's called The Road. Wow. What a book. Unlike my favorite book by him, Blood Meridian, let me start that over. Unlike my favorite book by him, Blood Meridian, The Road is an easier read, but also quite as disturbing. Yeah. Now, the book was released in 2006, and the film was released in 2009. That's pretty quick. So it is a post-apocalyptic. Did I get that right? Post-apocalyptic survival film directed by John Hillcoat, and it stars Viggo Mortensen and Cody Smith McPhee as a father and son traversing and struggling to survive in the wasteland. It also stars Charlize Theron as the mother and Robert Duvall as a blind drifter. Now, the nature of the catastrophe that leads to the apocalypse is not specified, and it results in an extinction event. All plant life is dead or dying, as well as all animal life. There's no sunshine, and the atmosphere is dark and bleak, and ashes cover everything. The father and mother and son, they all remain unnamed throughout the film and the book, as do all of the other characters. Now, as the father and son roam through the wasteland, the story of the mother is told in flashbacks, but I'll summarize it here. Shortly after the catastrophe, she gives birth to the son at home. And over the next few years, she basically gives up hope. The families all around them have committed suicide to escape the raping and cannibalism. Yeah. Now she tells her husband that she does not want to survive in such a world, and they should all do the suicide thing. Now the father is very shaken by this, and he is determined to survive. He argues with her, but she is steadfast and is holding their pistol. The only issue is that there are only 2 bullets in the revolver, and now there are 3 of them. She blames him for this, and late at night, she basically just leaves and walks off into the forest, never to be seen again. Now, when things are at their bleakest, the father decides to leave and head south to hopefully find warmer weather along the seacoast. By the way, this certainly happens in the United States, but we don't know where. Now, the son is about 6 years old now. By the way, this is a very dirty film. And what I mean by that is everyone's covered in dirt, ashes, and soot. Their clothes are raggedy. Everybody just looks like shit. Food is rare and non-existent, thus the cannibals. Now, there are several scenes involving cannibals. In one of them, the father and son are sleeping in a junk car when a truckload of cannibals drives down the road towards them. They scamper away into the nearby woods and hide. Unfortunately, one of the cannibals walks in the woods to take a piss, and he sees them. Well, the father pulls his gun and holds it on the cannibal, but the cannibal says, "You won't shoot me. You've never killed a man in your life." Well, a struggle ensues, and the cannibal grabs the son, holding him at knife point. The father raises the pistol and shoots the cannibal in the head, killing him. But that attracts the attention of all the other cannibals, and there are about 12 of them, and they all have rifles. Fortunately, they're able to elude the cannibals, and they continue on their trek. By the way, again, in this movie, there's no industry, there's no retail. All of the stores and shops have been tossed, empty shelves. Basically, people are starving or being eaten. The father and son continue to walk on, and they go into a diner where they find crumbs laying on a table, which they gladly eat. Yeah. Then they find a large house and they go in to look for food. In the kitchen, they find a locked trap door. The father pries it open and they walk down into the basement. And there are about a dozen people there being held captive by the cannibals. And these people are scrawny and they start pleading with us, save us, save us. But the father and son run back up the stairs only to find that the cannibals are returning home, walking through the yard toward the front door. So the father and son run upstairs and hide in a bathroom. And when the cannibals enter the house, the father puts the revolver to his son's forehead in case they are discovered. As the cannibal heads upstairs, the captives escape from the basement, running away, running out into the yard, and the cannibals run after them. This allows the father and son to escape again. By the way, again, the actors in this film, they must have been on a strict diet, very strict, because they are very thin and bony. Yeah. Hopefully they got paid extra for that. So they walk on and they find another house, again with nothing inside, no food. But when they leave and walk across the yard, they find a hatch that goes down into a fallout shelter. Now, this shelter is loaded with all types of food, canned goods, drinks, everything. They are in heaven. So they stay there a few days, but then they hear dogs barking. This alerts the father, and the son says, it's only dogs. We can keep staying here. But the father answers back, where there's dogs, there are cannibals. And he decides they need to leave. Okay, spoiler alert. Spoilers are in the vicinity. Over the next few days, the father becomes ill, constantly coughing and occasionally coughing up blood. Now, they finally make it to a beach, which is not in great shape, and they are quite disappointed. Now, I'm going to skip a few scenes here, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the father dies on the beach. The boy is distraught and continues to walk and sees a man in the distance walking towards him. This alarms the boy, and he draws the revolver. But the man is friendly to him and asks about the father. The boy lowers the gun and tells him that the father has died. Soon the man's wife and 2 children walk up and join them, along with their dog. The wife tells the boy that they have been following him and asks if he will join them. Of course, he says yes. Roll credits. So this movie is currently streaming on Netflix, and it is really, really, 2 reallys, worth watching. Believe me. I've given up hope that someone will make a movie based on the book Blood Meridian. Now, if you are a reader, treat yourself to any of Cormac McCarthy's books, but start with Blood Meridian. If you do read it, send me a comment. Let me know what you think. Word of the week. Poignant. 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 That's not an everyday word, right? Now, I used it while discussing George Jones' hit song, He Stopped Loving Her Today. And poignant describes something that causes a sharp, strong feeling of sadness, regret, or deep emotional longing. And this is an apt word for that song. Give it a listen. Joke of the week. My elderly relatives like to tease me at weddings saying, "You'll be next." But they stopped once I started doing the same to them at funerals. Yeah, Question of the week. Last week I asked you, a man fell off of a 50-foot ladder but did not get hurt. How? Well, he was only on the second rung. Sorry about that. New question of the week. What are saccades? Saccades. 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 I'll give you the answer next week, but here's a hint. They are vision related. Thought of the week. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Now, this is a quote by Shunryu Suzuki. Basically, the mind has a tendency to compare what's happening to what could, should, or would be happening. And this comparing holds the expert back. Okay, so don't forget about the BFOD playlist we got hanging out there. Season 1, Season 2. I hope you're listening. I hope you're enjoying. And you may contact me if you care to. Click on the little send me a text button in the episode. Little thing sitting right there. Just click on it. Or you can contact me directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. By the way, don't forget that you can support this show. You can send me a little bit of money once a month if you like, or even if you don't like. But I'm enjoying doing the show. That's your option. That's it for this episode. I really enjoyed putting this one together. Good stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were entertained. And I'll tell you what, I'll talk at you again next time. Bye for now.